Hi everyone, just want to wish everyone a happy new year. I was hoping I wouldn't have to make another video. I really didn't expect things to overlap into 2019, but there's some things that I wanted to explain. There's some interesting scriptures over here in Acts 27 through 2019, which look like the years 2017 to 2019, and I tried to comment about this on a couple of videos and I didn't get a response back, so I just want to try to explain it in my own video because it's a little complicated. But first I just wanted to say that if the years were counted the way birthdays are counted, there would actually be 2018 candles on the cake. As you can see, the years started, the Gregorian calendar started with 1 AD, and so when you go from 1 AD to the present date, which is actually still the 1st, but I left it on January 2nd because that's the date that came up when I put it in, but you can see that it's exactly 2018 years. Let me execute that in one day. So if you put in the 1st, because it's still the 1st, you see that it's exactly 2018 years. And so that's how many candles would be blown. And so we're like the 1st day into the year 2019 at this point. Okay, so the very last time you see the word midnight in the Bible is in Acts 27, which looks like 2017, and Acts 27:27, which I've shown before how the number 27 represents the year 2017. And so this year that just passed was the 2017 year, and that was the very last midnight of the year of the 2017 year that we just had on New Year's Eve. Okay, so what I noticed a few days ago, I came across this scripture over here in Acts 20:17 where it talks about midnight. And it says over here, upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight. I've talked about before how the year 2017 represents the midnight hour, and it's in Matthew 27 where Jesus was crucified. Okay, I'll just show you that. When you put in Matthew 27 and you look at images, you see images of Jesus being crucified. You see Jesus on the cross in Matthew 27. And then if you go to Matthew 28, which represents the year 2018, it represents the 18th of Nisan, then you see that all the images that come up are of the resurrection. Okay, so this correlates with the blood moon pattern. I've talked about before how I realized one day when Pastor Sandy Armstrong was going over the Passover week and just explaining how Jesus fulfilled the Passover, when he was going over the dates, it just reminded me of the blood moon pattern, and I realized that that's what this pattern represents, because it's on the 9th to the 10th of Nisan that the perfect lamb is chosen. This is also a parallel to the atonement sacrifice when the two goats are presented to the priest starting on the 9th of Tishri, and then Jesus was nailed to the cross on the 14th to the 15th. That's when the veil of the temple was rent in twain, and then Jesus was placed in the tomb, and then he rose again on the 3rd day, which was Nisan 18th on Sunday morning. And so what I wasn't really expecting is that things would overlap into the year 2019, and as you can see, the last blood moon is in 2019. Okay, and there was this video over here by Steve Fletcher that I watched earlier today, and I'm gonna go ahead and put it on full screen so you can see that better. But the last blood moon is still a little bit blurry, that shows up on this chart in this symmetrical pattern over here, which is perfectly symmetrical, as you can see with the day counts. But the last blood moon of this perfectly symmetrical pattern is actually January 21st, 2019. Incidentally, I just want to point out that I had actually prayed this morning because I was wondering why we were still here in 2019 when all the evidence seemed to point to 2018. And so I had prayed and asked God, why we're still here. And I opened the Bible, and what I opened to was Daniel 8, the very end of Daniel 8. And this is right before Daniel 9, where Daniel realized that it had been 70 years since the Babylonian captivity, just like it's been 70 years now since 1948, and he was wondering, how long is it going to be? And he was praying, and then the angel came and he gave him the prophecy about the 70 weeks. And so I read through all that, and I knew if I kept reading, I would get to the point where it talks about the 21-day delay. And so I kept reading, and sure enough, I came across that in Daniel 10. It's where it talks about how the angel, I believe it was Gabriel, let me see. Okay, this is actually Jesus that appeared to him in this vision, and Daniel fell on his face. I could talk a little bit more about that. That's very important. So this is how you know that this is Jesus, the angel that appeared to him. And this is when he said that he was delayed 21 days. Okay, so I thought that was interesting because you have this last blood moon here on January 21st. I don't know if there's going to be that much of a delay, but I just thought I would point that out. But then what happened is, after I opened to the Bible, to that scripture, I prayed and asked if there truly is going to be a delay, if that's the reason why, if God would show a second witness, because there always has to be 2 to 3 witnesses. And so when I did that and I opened the Bible, that time I opened up to Ezra chapter 9. I believe it was verse 7 and 8 is where I turned to right after that prayer. And it said, "Since the days of our fathers we have been in a great trespass unto this day, and for our iniquities have we, our kings and our priests, been delivered into the hand of the kings of the lands, to the sword, to captivity, and to a spoil, and to confusion of face, as it is to this day. And now, for a little space, grace hath been given, hath been showed from the Lord our God, to leave us a remnant to escape, and to give us a nail in his holy place, that our God may lighten our eyes and give us a little reviving in our bondage." So it didn't show the word delay when I prayed for a second witness, but over here in verse 8, it's saying that God is giving a little space of grace, which is like a delay, a grace period. Okay, so now I want to get back to Acts 27 through 29, which looks like 2017 to 2019. And I just wanted to comment on this because it directly relates to, well, I'll talk about this video next, but it directly relates to the video over here by Steve Fletcher, because this video is titled "Lazarus is Dead. Happy Hanukkah." It's interesting, it has 1,180 views when I pulled it up. And so this directly relates to what I was looking at in Acts 27. I found this a few days ago because over here you have Eutychus, which was taken up dead. So I'll get into that, but I want to go over all of these scriptures. Again, this was the 2017 year that just ended at midnight. That was the last midnight of the year 2018. It's talking about the first day of the week here. If you look at the Strongs, it's actually talking about the Sabbath. Of course, the Sabbath would be the seventh day, or the sabbatical, and the seventh year would be the sabbatical, the Shemitah. and then because of the number 7. And then it says when the disciples came together to break bread, this is talking about receiving the Holy Communion here. And this is also significant. I can talk a little bit more about that. But then it says, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, which is what everyone was expecting, to depart on the morrow on New Year's Eve. And then when you get to verse 28, which looks like 2018, it says, and there were many lights in the upper chamber. Of course, you have the many lights on Hanukkah, which this was the true Hanukkah. You also have the lights from the fireworks of New Year's Eve. And then the upper chamber, of course, is a representation of the Last Supper. It was in the upper room where the Last Supper took place, and that's a type and shadow of the wedding supper of the Lamb. And this is also a representation of heaven. Okay, and then it goes on to say they were gathered together. So they were gathered together in the upper chamber. And this is coming up in verse 28, which looks like 2018. And if you look at the word lights, it's the word lambas, and it's a form of the word lambada. I've talked about that before. It's the same as the candlesticks where Jesus was standing in the midst of the 7 candlesticks. Okay, it's actually the same word as the one that's used in Matthew 25. It says, then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And you see the word lamps here is the word lambas. So it's the exact same word. Okay, so there were many lights in the upper chamber, and you see the word lights is the word lambas. So that's what the wise virgins, or all the virgins, were holding their lamps, but the wise ones had oil in their lamps. And then when you get to verse 20:19, it says, and there sat in a window a certain young man named Eutychus, being fallen into a deep sleep. And as Paul was long preaching, he sunk down with sleep and fell down from the 3rd loft and was taken up dead. And again, this is a representation of heaven. This reminds me of the 3rd heaven. And then this person, which I'll explain what his name means in a minute, but you see that he was taken up dead. And so that would be a type and shadow of the resurrection, the taking up of the dead. If you look at the word taken up, it's the word erol, and it means to raise up, elevate, lift up, to raise from the ground, to take by force. So it's the same as the rapture, basically. And so he was taken up dead. And the word over here for window is a diminutive of the word door. You can see right here it says window, an aperture, little door. It's the same word. This is the word thidis. It's a form of the word thida, which is the word door. Jesus is the door. It says the door, the vestibule, used in any opening like a door or entrance, the door through which sheep go in and out, the name of him who brings salvation to those who follow his guidance. This is what Jesus said. He was the door for the sheep on Hanukkah, an open door, the door to the kingdom of heaven. Okay, it was actually in John 10:9, which makes it the number 19, where Jesus said, I am the door. If any man enter in, he shall be saved and shall go out and find pasture. And Jesus said this on Hanukkah. He also said it in verse 7, which makes it number 17. It's also interesting that it comes up here in John 20:19, but I'm running out of time, so I can't get into that scripture. I'll try to do that in the next video. But this name over here, Eutychus, it actually means fortunate. I'll show you the meaning right here. It comes from the word ευτυχώς in Greek, which means fortunate. Thanks for watching. I'll try to continue with more in the next video.